So, The Razor's Edge by W. Somerset Maugham, or also known as William Somerset Maugham. Um, and the way I understand to pronounce it is it's simpler than it looks. I'm not going to spell it out for you because I'm going to butcher it, but it is pronounced mom. So, like mom or dad. And yeah, this was a 1944 novel that explores a. It's kind of a. I want to say it's just realist, but it's like a fictional undertone, kind of undercurrent to it, and it takes like a pretty. It was one of. I understand this is one of Mom's later works. So he was. This is my first that I've read by him, and I was actually recommended by an older friend of mine that said that that he was recommended this and that it changed his life and that there was not much of a the plot wasn't really there wasn't a lot. He warned me that there wasn't a lot going on as far as the plot goes on. There's not like a lot of I guess there's not a lot of action or cumulative anything, but no. Well, rather there actually is a lot of accumulating events transpiring, but it seems to be that there's a lot of stillness in what's going on. So it's a little bit like there's a kind of a Marcel Proust kind of modernist way of looking at things. But then again, this was he was writing for a while, Somerset Maugham, and he was an English/French writer that grew up, and he was born I believe in 1870s in Paris, and his friend I think he from my understanding is from brushing up a little bit on his sister was that he was born of a French embassy to English parents, and he kind of went back and forth between those two cities. So what you see is like the narrator of this is something a bit of Somerset Maugham himself. He's something of a kind of watching people and like a writer himself in the novel. And it's a very thinly veiled, disguised kind of self-insert of himself, but he's not like making it about himself. He's just kind of mainly observing all these different circumstances and characters. And boy, there's quite the cast of characters in this novel. But so what is it about? So The Razor's Edge explores mainly fixates on Larry Darrell, and he is it starts the novel with him as a young man, him in his late teens, and he's actually from Chicago. So we actually start almost in media res with Somerset Maugham already maybe about middle age himself. Maybe by the time he's starting the story, because you're looking at stuff because he wrote before this. I believe his first work was Liza of Lambeth, which I have on my list, and it's a much shorter read. This wasn't too bad. This was like a little over 300 pages. I actually have. Whoa, wait. I could have sworn I had the book with me. I thought I had the book with me. But no. Just trust me. It's about that. It's like an average length of a book. It's not like quite as long as like Swan's Way, for example, but it is pretty exhaustive though. It felt like sometimes it was like the bit longer than it felt. Although not to judge a book solely based on that merit, but yeah, it was a. So we're following Larry Darrell and this different childhood friends in Chicago because he's visiting his friend Elliot Templeton. So we actually hear about Elliot first, and Elliot from the first page, I want to say from at least the first few pages, and but it's not about Elliot. The more we go on, the more we find Elliot to be a lot, or at least made out to be kind of a little bit dull. But at the same time, he's also surrounding himself he's a society man, so he's surrounding himself with dukes and all these various kind of upper class people, and he's a very gossip heavy guy. He just lives for that kind of like the rumors of these lives, like the hobnobbing with these like kind of elite people and these art dealers and some of them are artists and philosophers and people, but it also kind of inadvertently leads him to meet Elliot, who's from I believe Chicago, and then they go to Chicago. Interesting kind of city choice because the Midwest. You wouldn't really think that to be more vibrative city. I was expecting more of a kind of a New York kind of thing because of how New York, maybe California, because but anyway, especially with the war going on, because a lot of people I know that Germans like Thomas Mann, I believe, emigrated to California, or so that seems to be that was my judgment. But anyway, so yeah, Elliot Templeton is he shows up a lot, but it's not really about him. It's more so Larry this whole time. He's a young, right from the get-go, we see him to be at one point expected to be, he actually comes back from a World War One, and I believe he's, I don't know if he was serving with a fighter pilot in the Air Force or if he was on the ground, but he was, either way, he lost a good friend in that war, and he's massively traumatized from that, and he's more so really, really fixated on just his whole character arc is just trying to find the meaning of life, and he's like a truth seeker at heart, and he's very, very much oriented toward not material possessions like a lot of the characters in this novel. His childhood friend Isabel ends up actually becoming his fiancée, but she calls it off because she doesn't really think Larry is in the right place, and that he's not that he's these exchanges early in the novel, maybe 30 to 40 pages, and you get the sense that there's like a tension between them, that they're not really meant for each other, because Isabel is mammothly not to use that word, but she's very much attuned to a different kind of set of priorities. Like she wants to be kind of with a reliant, consistent, stable, hardworking husband that like her eventual husband Gray, and there's also a another friend. He's supposed to be Larry's best friend. So even though it seems like kind of odd that Larry and Gray are best friends, but they don't really see each other a lot, and then Larry's off doing it's feeling like that was a kind of an odd fit in my opinion. But maybe I'm not looking at it the right way. But so yes, she's eventually Isabel actually marries Gray, and they have kind of a decent marriage, it seems. Sometimes it seems like she's in denial of like how rosy things get, and how Gray and his certain of his like he has illnesses that kind of set him back, and he's like kind of prone to sickness and ailments. So yeah, they eventually kind of settle into this kind of existence of Gray is a hardworking man, a lawyer who needs to rely on his wife, and that's kind of how it fits. Like there's like a so that's kind of Gray's thing is just to work hard and to be consistently just do lawyer things, and not really do great things, and but there's something that he said about right from the get-go with Larry, Somerset Man, and his kind of narrative voice taking over, although he never mentions himself by name in the novel, but he says something to the effect of Larry Darrell was one of those men who you don't really think about a lot, maybe during their lifetime. Like they take a little while to take control on you, but like afterwards you think that they could have very well have made a very impactful, indelible effect on everybody around them. But it takes until like post hoc, like after the fact, for that effect to actually have resounding effect. So that's kind of the interesting thing about him. And throughout the whole entire novel, there's different kind of inheritances and different things, and some people go to Paris, and Larry eventually goes to Paris to go to this bohemian lifestyle where he's a lot less reliant on the kind of consistency, and the kind of the work ethic of America is very this framing that Somerset Man uses is kind of in the kind of looking at America in a critical way, and I definitely agree on that sense of the way that America is portrayed as having kind of this set standard kind of Protestant work ethic of like Max Weber kind of hypothesized some like 150 years ago in the sociology. And yeah, this idea that America is very one-track minded, and it's like you go into college, or you go to this, and then this happens, and your trajectory is very just like that. But Larry's trajectory is a lot different. Like, he goes into Germany, and then he works at a coal mine for a little bit, and then kind of loses hope, and then he's kind of almost like a saintly, almost virginal creature. He's this very drawn to the Indian lifestyle, and then he goes to Bombay, India, and then he meets all these different Vishnu gurus, and these in fact he actually talks of taking counsel of like a he actually talks that he says that he saws the Bhagwan Ramani Mahashri, who yeah, no, I'm butchering that name, who was disguised as Sir Ganesha. So yeah, he goes all around and just kind of lets himself get immersed by the experience of the world, and being completely open minded to what may happen in the process. And he's like on one hand he's interested in reading psychology, and he's talking about, and early on we get a sense of his intelligence and his curiosity by when he's reading William James's on the variety of religious experiences, which is no doubt a pretty intense kind of not like impossible to read. Maybe I haven't read William James yet. He's on my wish list, but I would like to eventually get to his stuff. But yeah, we get a sense, scope of his a little taste of his intelligence early on when he's like reading that as a late in his late teens or early 20s, and then later on he's like, it just like his curiosity just grows and grows, and he's like now takes an interest in writing these little essay type I don't know how he described it, but he as like kind of biographies of different artists and different historical figures, and he has definitely scholarly ambitions, and but yeah, these all of these kind of come to a certain, like, I don't know, it's hard to describe his character. It's like Somerset Maugham was I think the one thing with this novel is that it people have accused him as portraying women especially, but I felt this was the same for most a good deal of the characters, at least, that they had a kind of superficial, hollow attitude. Like, he had a kind of a dismissive attitude toward women in a way, where he says that at some point that Isabel isn't really much more to look at than kind of a pretty face, and that she has like a fine kind of build, or she's put together in a nice eye-catching way, but she's not really all that compelling when it comes. There's not a lot going down inside, with underneath all that beauty. But I just like, I'm not sure. I don't know how much that was a sign of the times. I mean, it was the 1940s, and much less it was taken through a kind of a concocted over the years of an accrued throughout at least as far back as like the early 19th century. I mean, you have to understand, Somerset Maugham was, he's writing for quite a while, and he was like, maybe taking some kind of sneaking some questionable ideas about, and I'm not trying to defend him, I'm just saying, because I also thought that was like, I caught that part caught me off guard, and I heard other people point out that same kind of scene where they're the way he, or just like general scenes where he describes the beauty of these characters. And there's another character named Sophie, I think Sophie Devereux, or was it what was her name? She was a childhood friend of Larry. So yeah, Sophie is a complicated character. She's interested in poetry, and like she has she writes kind of a book of poetry when she's younger, but she's and I feel like Somerset Maugham at least had a empathetic kind of look into her life, but again, she also was a there's also a kind of a bad rep that she gets, I guess, like throughout the whole. Her character ends up kind of going to France as well, and ends up going to, like, her marriage kind of falls apart, I think, and then I think there's a tragedy in different things, and there's a lot of kind of a gossip, kind of heavy conversations revolving around her and then Larry, because Larry ends up being some people actually accused. I think like even the Somerset Maugham's character kind of maybe accused Sophie of kind of being a, I don't know, like a man eater of sorts, I guess, like kind of going after Larry just because, for the novelty and thrill of it, not because she actually loved him truly, but she was kind of promiscuous for its own sake. Like there wasn't any kind of, she was like a female Don Juan, and yeah, so we get the sense that these a lot of the female characters are kind of, they're very kind of status driven, I guess. But then again, just the men characters are too. Like Elliot Templeton was said to have had, to be at the end of it when he dies, when his character dies. Spoiler alert. That his life was so trivial. That's what his mom says himself, is that his life was nothing more than just meeting up with these dukes and these elite people throughout in all these different parties, and that these the high society life wasn't really all that what it was cracked up to be. It was all, when it came down to it, there was like this kind of quiet despair to a lot of these characters, and that's what Larry was trying to. This is what I loved most about the novel. The biggest takeaway I got was that Larry was trying to. I loved how he was trying to kind of emancipate himself from the trivialities of this existence of just kind of a quiet, just kind of just go with the flow, just take your this job and work it, and then maybe insinuate yourself into the high society and get you'll go far, but at the end of the day it's all fluff to him. It's just material existence, and that's why his philosophy on a bit of Spinoza's philosophy and then a bit of Schopenhauer's philosophy of like things being of course taking a lot from the Vedantas of the Indian Eastern kind of mysticism, and how he combines that into kind of a holistic kind of whole. I also felt that was a little bit like there's like a lot of this stuff, like their conversations are kind of dull, and then near the end you got this very big payoff with this conversation between Somerset Maugham and Larry, and obviously no doubt that Larry was based on someone in real life, but with some kind of amalgam prototype character, or maybe just the archetype of someone. But yeah, this, I thought that that even though it felt like that conversation felt like a little bit like it should have been like kind of dispensed. I don't know. It should have been maybe prolonged earlier in the novel, maybe. But I don't know. I felt like it was still like a good payoff, because it was like it really showed the true arc of the true extent of like Larry's philosophy, and how he combined all this kind of holistic everything he learned over his years, and how he's like planning to do next. And he's still very much a young man even by the end of the novel, maybe mid-30s, I suppose. But yeah, he's at the end he's planning to be a car mechanic, and he's and then Somerset Maugham is like kind of teasing him and saying that that's like kind of that he should do more scholarly work, and but there's a kind of a Wittgenstein kind of aspect to Larry as well, that he's like comfortable knowing that he could just like work any of these jobs and still retain this kind of philosophical thing, and say that he even says something to the effect of that working as a car mechanic kind of might, that tedium of that kind of work might bring him to think more and to like want to engage more in like intellectual matters. And I've actually found that kind of be oddly true, and like kind of partaking in repetitive monotonous tasks to an extent, to the point where it's not spirit, or it's not killing your spirit or your I don't know. I felt that was kind of that can be helpful for some people at least. But yeah, that's just kind of some of the thoughts I had about The Razor's Edge, and I hope I'm not leaving a whole lot about that out. I just wanted to make that a little bit more thorough, just because there was quite a lot of good that I got from it. I definitely would say it kind of guided me, it kind of opened my mind in a lot of ways, but I also felt like it was a little bit, the dull scenes were drawn out to in a way that Proust maybe did this too, with like dinner, conversations over dinner that would have taken showing this aristocratic kind of French life. drawn out to its maximum degree, where it's like it's just but at the same time it gets kind of monotonous. And I felt like that was kind of the same with this. Like there was like some margin of this that's like it just felt like to the point where it's like how many more of these scenes of going to another banquet or going to another lunch and another lunch conversation with Elliot, just kind of like rumoring about and just like kind of flattering people too. Because that's another thing about his character too is that he was a great like flattering personality that had a lot of infectious joy to him as well. Like a kind of even though it was superficial, it was like it's still an infectious kind of thing, and that's why. But anyway, that's all I have for Somerset Maughams, The Razor's Edge, and yeah, let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one.